So the first trial of Paul Manafort had ended with a guilty verdict on 8 different charges. Now, however, since then, we've learned that if it had not been for one lone juror, Manafort might actually have been convicted on all 18 counts. And I find that interesting because, of course, earlier when the verdict came out, or I should say after it came out, President Trump's like, oh, only 8. Okay. Yeah, no collusion, witch hunt, only 8. They couldn't get all 18. Sad. So now we know the reason, or we're gonna find out the reason, why only 8 counts, and this is how they kind of this is how they frame this, right? Oh, if you can't get all 18 counts, then it must be a witch hunt. But anyway, now a jury had convicted Manafort on Tuesday of 8 counts of tax and bank fraud, including 5 charges of filing false income tax returns, 1 count of failing to report foreign bank accounts, and 2 counts of bank fraud. So again, 8 charges out of 18. Manafort is likely going away for quite some time, right? So now there is one juror, a woman named Paula Duncan, who recently went on Fox News to talk about her experience. And she told the network that a lone juror could not come to that guilty verdict on 10 charges. Now, that's what led, of course, to the mistrial on 10 of Manafort's 18 counts. Now, I want to go to that discussion here in that interview where Duncan talks about that. She actually talks about the evidence. And I think that's the most important part because it's the evidence that they presented. Let's take a look.
That the evidence was overwhelming. I did not want Paul Manafort to be guilty, but he was, and no one's above the law. So it was our obligation to look through all of the evidence. And there were 4 paper boxes full of paper to look through.
Okay, so you said you wanted Manafort to be innocent. Why?
Because even his critics said he was a brilliant man at what he did. And why wouldn't Trump want him to help with the campaign?
But you are a President Trump supporter.
I am, very much so.
So what did you think about the charges being brought against Manafort? Did you think, you said going in you wanted to think that he was innocent. Did you think they were legitimate on the front end versus what you ultimately decided on the back end?
Well, the charges were legitimate, but the prosecution tried to make the case about the Russian collusion right from the beginning. And of course, the judge shut them down on that.
Okay, so the reason that I showed you that is to give you some context, right? So this person is a Trump supporter, doesn't believe in the Russian collusion, doesn't believe in anything like that. Still, with all the evidence that's presented, she's like, yeah, without a doubt, Manafort is guilty of all these different things, these 8 counts. And look, if it weren't for the lone juror that disagreed, I would have convicted him for all 18. Now, I also love how, or want to point out how it is kind of funny that she's like, well, Manafort's brilliant. Now, if Manafort were brilliant, he wouldn't have convicted of 8 different crimes. I'm just saying, brilliant. Okay. Not even a brilliant criminal. Not brilliant at all. He's an idiot. This guy somehow went broke after receiving $60 million. But anyway, we'll get to that. So now, here's the thing, right? Now, she goes on, or I should say, I'm playing the clips out of order, because it was actually earlier in the interview where she talked about the lone juror. Let's take a look at that.
So you all agreed on the 8 counts. The 10 others, there was one person who kept you from making that next step.
That's correct, yes.
What was their reasoning, if they shared with you?
Reasonable doubt. The person, a female juror, was... we all tried to convince her to look at the paper trail. We laid it out in front of her again and again, and she still said that she had a reasonable doubt. And that's the way the jury worked. We didn't want it to be hung, so we tried for an extended period of time to convince her, but in the end, she held out, and that's why we have 10 counts that did not get a verdict.
So, again, somebody who is very much a Trump supporter, wanted Manafort to be innocent, ended up trying to convince another jurist to say, no, here's the evidence. The evidence is overwhelming. Paul Manafort is guilty. Paul Manafort is guilty of all of this stuff. And believe me, I don't want him to be guilty, but he's guilty. It's irrefutable. And that one juror was like, nope, not at all. Nope, sad. Now, the reason that I bring this up is it kind of shows you this was the first test for Mueller's team. And that's why it's important, right? So when you can get people who are very pro-Trump, and again, she did talk about how his name was mentioned, and she's like, witch hunt, Russian collusion, not in favor of that. Oh, that was BS. But nonetheless, it shows you that they had their case ready. And even though the judge even seemed more biased towards Trump, the evidence spoke for itself. And that is the strength of the Mueller team. They've got the evidence. They brought the receipts. Now, Manafort, of course, look, maybe it was just super, super easy to get Manafort on these issues because the guy's not a smart person. He's an idiot. He made $60 million, tried to hide half of it from the government, and still ended up going broke, buying ridiculous things. He then, after he went broke, he went and lied to the banks, and of course that's a bank fraud, right? And they were able to see through that. You think somebody like this is smart enough to cover their ass? No. And this is indicative of a bigger problem in America, where you have a lot of people that get incredibly wealthy by screwing other people over, by committing financial crimes. Now, the thing is, look, I don't have to be smart. I just have to be ruthless. I just have to have no qualms about robbing my fellow Americans. And so they think, because again, they're not smart people, you can't touch me, I'm rich. And unfortunately, that does work all the time. Basically, the only reason both Cohen and Manafort actually got caught is because they were tied to a historically unpopular / corrupt president. Guaranteed, they wouldn't have been touched had they not been tied to Trump. And that is a devastating indictment of our legal system. Again, how do you think that a lot of these wealthy people get their money in the first place? They're criminals, and they're basically stealing. Nonetheless, what you have here is one of the rare instances where the criminal justice system actually does work and goes after people who are wealthy and powerful. So that's interesting. Now, speaking of wealthy and powerful, speaking of potential criminals, here you have President Trump, who decides to weigh in, right? And he does so on Twitter because, of course, that's what he does. He said, I feel very badly for Paul Manafort and his wonderful family. Justice took a 12-year-old tax case, among other things, applied tremendous pressure on him, and unlike Michael Cohen, he refused to make up stories in order to get a deal. Such respect for a brave man. So, okay, Justice took a 12-year-old case. In that case, did he break the law? Yes, the answer is yes. He did. He got convicted for breaking the law on that old tax case. So it shouldn't matter how old that case is. You break the law, you break the law. At least in this case, right? And the reason I bring that up is because there are statutes of limitations, right? In this case, there was not, because he just got convicted for them. But anyway, here's the thing. Oh, the Paul Manafort didn't break. He didn't break. I don't think you understand what breaking means. He says, oh, he didn't break like that rat Michael Cohen and make things up. First of all, breaking doesn't mean that you're making up lies. It actually means that you broke and told the truth. So, look, and here's the thing. There's a couple of reasons why he didn't break, right? For one, maybe he doesn't know anything about Trump. He's like, look, what you're looking for, I don't have any information on Trump's possible wrongdoings. Now, in my opinion, this is my speculation, I think he does. And especially considering Trump's defense of him and all that stuff, maybe he's waiting for a pardon, which is definitely possible. But look, Trump, by the way, he sounds like a mob boss when he talks about this stuff. Oh, he didn't break. What a brave man for not ratting me out, unlike that despicable rat Cohen. And again, the reason that he goes on the attack against Cohen is because Cohen named him as a co-conspirator to campaign finance violations. And Trump admits, hey, that money didn't come from my campaign, it came from me. Yeah, but what it did is that it suppressed the story in order to affect his election, which is a campaign violation. Donald Trump's monumentally stupid and apparently criminal. So whether he gets punished or not, however, well, that remains to be seen. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to jail. Worst case for him, he gets removed from office, gets some sort of deal, and skates. But again, that's going way into speculation. As for Manafort, well, he's in a bit more trouble. Because again, if he does get pardoned, well, that's going to kind of show everybody that, well, that he does have information on Donald Trump, and there's no saying whether or not he would talk to prosecutors anyway. But anyway, I think the most important takeaway here is that it kind of shows you the type of case that Mueller's team is bringing to bear, and I think for all the cases going forward, that's going to spell a lot of trouble, especially if these people know anything about President Trump. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.